Top 10 richest country in the world by 2050. Number 10. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom's economy is a highly developed social market economy. The United Kingdom would drop from 9th to 10th place, as Germany would take the spot. At the same time, the UK will remove France from the top 10 list, making it one of the few developed economies of today to stand the test of time. By 2050, the United Kingdom will have a $5.4 trillion economy in terms of GDP, based on purchasing power parity, or GDP in PPP. Germany will be the 9th richest country in the world by 2050, with an annual growth rate of 2%. Number 9. Germany. Germany will perform slightly better than its British counterpart over the next 30 years. Germany's performance relative to certain emerging markets will play a significant role in its ranking among the top 10. By 2050, Germany will be a $6.1 trillion economy in terms of gross domestic product, based on purchasing power parity, in other words GDP, in PPP. With an annual growth rate of 1.4%, Germany will be the 9th richest country in the world by 2050. Number 8. Japan. Japan is in a similar position to Germany. It is not like that the strength of its economy is expected to decline, but other nations, such as Brazil and Mexico, are expected to overcome Japan by 2050. Overall, Japan, the world's third largest economy today, is expected to drop out of the top 5 by 2050 and fall to 8th place. It will be a $6.8 trillion economy in terms of gross domestic product, based on purchasing power parity, in other words GDP and PPP, by 2050. Japan will be the 8th richest country in the world by 2050, with an annual growth rate of 1%. Number 7. Mexico. Mexico has the potential to overtake the United Kingdom and France in the next 30 years. It is one of the countries that could see significant economic improvement. Another potential strength for Mexico in the coming years is a stronger peso, particularly when compared to other Latin American currencies, such as the Colombian peso or the Brazilian real. Mexico will have a $6.9 trillion economy in terms of GDP, based on purchasing power parity, in other words GDP, in PPP, by 2050. With an annual growth rate of 6.9%, it will be the world's 7th richest country by 2050. Number 6. Russia. As the world shifts to natural gas, experts believe that Russia has positioned itself well in comparison to other economies. Furthermore, as seen in recent years, Russia has been gradually diversifying its economy in order to avoid relying solely on natural resources for growth. Russia will have a beautiful $7.1 trillion economy in terms of GDP, based on purchasing power parity, by 2050. With an annual growth rate of 1.8%, it will be the world's 6th richest country by 2050. Number 5. Brazil. Brazil overcame obstacles and eventually succeeded in combining global best practices with flexible adaptation to local business and consumer environments. Walmart is an example of this in Brazil. Now, a more diverse economy and increased foreign investment may enable Brazil to overtake some of the world's largest economies. And, by 2050, Brazil will have a $7.5 trillion economy in terms of GDP, based on purchasing power parity. With an annual growth rate of 2.5%, it will be the world's 5th richest country by 2050. Number 4. Indonesia. Even before the coronavirus pandemic hit China, many companies were leaving the country in search of greener pastures in neighboring countries. The results of Indonesia attracting offshoring jobs from China have already caught the attention of financial analysts worldwide. This has increased real income growth, domestic demand, and its competitive advantage. By 2050, Indonesia will have a $10.5 trillion economy in terms of GDP in purchasing power parity, or GDP in PPP. With an annual growth rate of 3.2%, it will be the world's 4th richest country by 2050. Number 3. United States. According to researchers, mass education could play a major role in America's decline as the world's richest country. Despite the United States ranking being near the top of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the results of public education spending have been shockingly bad. By 2050, the economy will be worth $34.1 trillion in terms of GDP, based on purchasing power parity, or GDP and PPP. With an annual growth rate of 1.9%, it will be the world's third richest country by 2050. Number 2. India. India's GDP per capita trajectory over the next 30 years is vastly different from its overall GDP trajectory of today, proving that while strong population growth can be a key driver of GDP growth, but it can also make better average income levels way more challenging. By 2050, the economy will be worth $44.1 trillion in terms of GDP, based on purchasing power parity, in other words GDP and PPP. With an annual growth rate of 3.9%, it will be the world's second richest country by 2050. Number 1. China. China will not grow by staying as isolated as it was for many years. Instead, Beijing will expand by welcoming foreign companies such as General Motors and Tesla Motors into its markets. Since engaging in a trade war with the United States in 2017, the president has embraced market-oriented reforms, allowing for greater foreign direct investment. Ultimately, despite geopolitical tensions and trade disputes, China will remain dominant in the next 30 years. By 2050, the economy will be worth $58.5 trillion in terms of GDP based on purchasing power parity, in other words GDP and PPP. With an annual growth rate of 2.1%, it will be the world's richest country by 2050.